ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is another lovely Wednesday evening, and so we bring you another episode of Inside the Helmet. We thank you for joining us on this Wednesday evening, and we hope you stick around and enjoy this episode. You may notice a new face on the show today. I'd like everyone to welcome to the show my stepbrother, Ty.
How's it going, guys?
All right, Ty.
Happy to be in the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Talk about some cool stuff today. Some sports. Happy to be inside the helmet with y'all.
Mm-hmm. And I like that actually. Happy to be inside the helmet. How have we not thought of that? I like that a
Yeah,
lot.
right?
Yeah, Ty's gonna bring to us a perspective on a sport that neither my dad or I are really specialists in. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But we're gonna open with something that we are more familiar with, and we've talked a ton about on the show, of course, as it being one of the main focuses, and that is the NFL. And in particular, we have chosen to talk about some of the ways that the game has changed over the years. With the NFL and just greater American football as a whole is now a game that has a history spanning well over a century. And of course, predictably in that time, the game has done anything but stay the same. Seems like every year or every couple years, there's some headline about some big rule change that's coming our way to shake up the way that the game of football is played at the highest level. And so, why don't we get started? What do you got, Dad?
Yeah, I mean, I think back to the old films that you watch, the black and white films of the NFL, and we could probably do an entire show on how equipment has changed because those guys in the leather helmets with no face masks were pretty funny. But yeah, but kind of sticking with that era, I think the first major rule change in if you study the history of the NFL, when they first started out, it was really guys would hand off the ball and there was a scrum, and it was just kind of pushing, the old 3 yards in a cloud of dust,
Very
and
much more similar to rugby.
it really
What you
was.
say?
And then at some point, they introduced a rule that said that you could throw the ball forward. And of course, the footballs that they used back then were big, fat, somewhere between a basketball and a football. They were not streamlined for passing. But yeah, the introduction of the forward pass. I mean, can you imagine if they'd never introduced that? I don't think the NFL would exist today. I mean,
No, probably not.
nobody would care. Um, so for me, that's the first one that I can think of that changed the game because now it was not just about getting the biggest, strongest, heaviest guys and pushing the pile forward. There was the unpredictability of the pass,
Hmm.
and now that's a huge part of the game. So that's my first one.
Ty, would you like to throw one out?
Yeah, I think that your dad and I were talking about it a little bit earlier, but this is way before my time. But I think about how the free agent market is has affected how players, um, you know, obviously it affects how they go between teams, but there's not as much loyalty in the game anymore. That
Hmm.
changes a lot. There's a lot of the players are playing for money. It changes how teams draft, changes how teams will build build their personnel out. I didn't even know that free agency wasn't really a thing. I don't, when was that rule change implemented, Keith? You said, um,
Yeah, that was right after the Cowboys won their second Super Bowl with Jimmy Johnson.
yeah, that's
Uh,
right. I mean,
Free
that,
agency, so 1993.
yeah, that
Ish.
completely changes everything.
That yeah.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing because you wouldn't think that just adding that sort of like off-season element would change just the minds of the players so much, but it does, right? So players will maybe sometimes you see players, running down their contract using their contract as leverage for other deals, performance incentives and free agency, based on deals they sign with new teams, and it's kind of changed it. It's made the game definitely seem more like a business for the players, whereas it used to just be a unified business for for everybody, like the fans included. But now it's like, yeah, the players kind of have their own businesses, and that they're trying to operate that way. It's definitely changed the game a lot, made it more business oriented, I feel like, for the players. So that's another change. I obviously don't know what football was like before free agency, so I can't really speak too much to that, but
I
that
I can
I
speak
can
to it.
imagine it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I can speak to it. I think rivalries were a bigger thing
Mm,
before free agency because you had guys, staying on the same team their entire career and really developing a dislike of other teams. And also, there was not the rush to get the rookies uh, in their first year. They could
mm,
sit and learn
yeah.
and grow. And now, you sign a rookie to a 4-year contract, and you're not going to waste a year with them sitting on the bench because when they hit that second contract, they don't want to sit on the bench because they want to prove themselves after 3 or 4 years and get that second contract and get the
Yeah.
big money.
Yeah. Yeah, it totally changes things. Like now the draft is completely different. Like you said, the new players that are getting drafted, they have a shorter time window to prove themselves. And I think another thing, like it's kind of the opposite end of what you said from like rivalries. I think players love their team a little bit less. Feels like there's a lot less loyalty. So you know, say, I mean, I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan. I watch the Vikings will draft a player and then they will leave after their draft contract's up. And it's like, well, I mean, this person played for my team and evidently didn't love the team enough to stay. And it's not that they don't. It's not that that's their fault. It's the way that free agency has affected the minds of players. They're gonna, perform well enough and use that performance instead of wanting to improve the team. Except maybe like a player like Tom Brady for most of his career before he went to the Buccaneers, I, he would constantly take lower money deals to improve the roster around him to win more titles, which they so evidently did. But most players will just chase a higher value contract now. So yeah, a lot less loyalty, a lot less rivalry in the game for sure.
Certainly, and I think we're kind of seeing another wave of this, but now in the college world with
Mm.
NIL and
Oh yeah.
players getting actually paid
I knew
out
you were going to
front and
say that.
having contracts. Yeah.
Uh, I was thinking
Um,
it too.
would you say, as somebody who lived through the change to free agency and this sort of decline in loyalty and players more so just focusing on their own money and their own incentives over the team aspect, would you say it's very similar to what we have going on now?
Yeah, I mean, college football has become a business, and I think that I understand the transition to make football into a business, and on the positive side you can have a team that's not really good, and
Mhm.
through free agency you can become good in just a year or two, and so that makes it more interesting and more competitive. But there's a nostalgic part of me that misses, I was a Cowboys fan from the time I was 10, and uh, it was pretty much the same teams every year competing, but you grew to really love the players. And now, you got a guy like, last year, look at what happened with Micah Parsons and the
Mhm.
Cowboys. I mean, Micah Parsons was like best player on the Cowboys, and suddenly he's a Packer. And now I don't root for him anymore, you
Yeah.
know? And I feel bad for the
Yeah.
people who go out and buy jerseys.
No.
Yeah, certainly. I will say I don't personally root for Micah Parsons anymore because I think he's a bit of a diva, and I'm
Yeah.
not really a fan of his personality and how he handled the whole falling out with the Cowboys thing. But if say Dak Prescott for some reason had some contract dispute that ended up with him going to a different team, but he didn't like throw a fit and kind of tarnish his reputation, then I would still certainly be a fan of his. So.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different elements. Free agency really shifted the dynamics in a way. I
Hmm.
mean, that was huge. Just like the forward pass. I mean, it
Yeah.
was there's some rule changes that happen that it doesn't shift the dynamic, but it does have a big change. And I know, Michael, we were kind of talking before the show. You had another one that was fairly significant that we've seen in the NFL.
Yeah, you talk about something that happens at the start of the game and after each score and all that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. So for those of you who maybe for some reason watch the show but don't watch sports, what um no, but the NFL changed the way they do kickoffs
Yeah.
a couple years ago. I think we've had what 2 seasons with the new rules.
Yeah.
Only one, whatever. Either way, so now with these new kickoff rules, I won't go into all the little details and specifics to try and describe it because I imagine if you're watching the show, you're already familiar with how the new kickoff rules work and how they used to work. But this all is all done in the name of safety. The kickoff was seen as an archaic and frankly dangerous play because even on a touchback, a play that objectively nets no yards, no real action, the people that are trying to go set up and block don't know it's going to be a touchback until after they've already made initial contact with the guy they're trying to block. And so you'll have guys getting hurt, getting concussed on a frankly useless play.
Yeah.
And so they, tried to alter the game to slow it down, slow that contact down and make them wait to see what's going to happen longer. But these contacts are still happening. And I looked it up. There were actually more concussions last year than there had been like before the rule change.
Really?
So there, yeah. Well, there are also a lot more kickoffs happening, but the percentage is about the same.
Hmm.
But there were volume wise, there were more concussions last year, and so I think that the rule change has not quite had its intended use or intended value.
Hmm.
And it has gotten, in my opinion, from what I've seen, an overwhelmingly negative reception because now, teams on a touchback, what do they start at the 30, the 40?
35, I think.
35. Yeah.
All right, right in between.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Shows what I know. I'll go back to watching racing.
yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
ah. Um,
But anyway, like this is now kind of working in tandem with kickers becoming better than they ever have been before, where a 70-yard field goal is not that unrealistic. Teams are gonna
by the
try
way,
it.
it's worth mentioning. There's another stepbrother who can kick a 65-yard field goal. I've seen him do it.
Yeah. Okay,
Last
you gotta bring.
Thanksgiving, Lucas, we watched Lucas. Maybe
Mm,
someday he'll join the podcast and talk about
hmm
the mechanics of kicking and stuff.
Yeah.
That would be
And
cool.
yeah, that'd be cool. Um, I'm gonna leave the topic of overtime to Ty because he brought it up in
Yes.
the uh, pre broadcast. But
hmm
um, I'm gonna throw out a rule I think everybody's in favor of, and I think that they've gotten it finally right, and that's the replay. Uh, back
Okay.
back if you were a Houston Oiler fan from back in the 70s when the Houston Oilers were trying so hard to get past the Pittsburgh Steelers and make it to a Super Bowl, they never did. But there was an AFC Championship game where the Houston Oilers had essentially what would have been the game-winning touchdown, a throw to the back of the end zone to a receiver named Mike Renfro. I know I'm a nerd that I know all this stuff, and he did a toe tap at the back of the end zone, and the referee said nope, he was out. And so Pittsburgh won, and they went on and they beat the Rams in 1979 in the Super Bowl. Uh, Replay showed clearly he had both feet in. And that was when the push for instant replay started, and they messed around with a lot of different ways. If you remember back when the guys used to go into like this little booth, it's like a little phone booth out there, and draw the curtain and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, don't
And
they still have like at least when we went, they had like a display, an interactive thing of like a referee booth where you can go watch a replay in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
yeah, that was the original way, and people started making fun of it, going, how do we know he's not in there watching a peep show? Um, one of the announcers said that one time. And, it was pretty funny. Nowadays, they just call upstairs, and there's some referee off screen who makes the decision. And I think that they've gotten it right. I mean, and they limit
Yeah.
it to they limit. I mean, they review every score, which you should, and and then you have a certain number of challenges. So I don't have a whole lot to complain about with the instant replay. I think they finally evolved it to a point where it's worthwhile,
Mhm.
um, and it's a good rule change. We all were talking pre-broadcast though about the topic that Ty brought up,
Mhm.
that the NFL has not gotten right yet,
Hmm.
and we think that there is a model that they should follow. Ty, tell us about that.
Yeah, so we talked about overtimes. Like when I was little, the overtime was like, okay, you meet in the middle after a long hard game. Maybe both teams have their reasons to win it, and the referee flips the coin, and it's like basically whoever wins the coin toss wins the game essentially.
Yeah.
And then if that team punts it or doesn't do anything on offense, then they basically lose. So it wasn't that exciting. And then so at some point they made the rule change to where if you get a field goal, the other team gets a chance, but or if you get the ball first and you get a field goal, then the other team gets a chance. If you get a touchdown, the game's over. So they kind of like slightly tweaked it, made it slightly better, but still kind of weird. Um, Now both teams get a possession, and then it's like first score wins after that, um, or whoever has the higher score after both possessions wins. But like it's one of those cases where like I feel like college football does a lot of these things right. I don't think college football has the kickoff rule either.
They
I think
don't.
No,
that
they still work under the old better system.
yeah. They work under the same kickoff system. They operate under like which is the most entertaining thing like in sports. Like in like the for me, college football overtime is so entertaining. It's not
Oh
not
yeah.
only is it like not only is it entertaining and it's you have to strike a delicate balance when you make these rules like entertaining for the fans but also like a test of the team's abilities or
Mhm.
the safety of the players. When you do the college football overtime rules, it's hard to score in the red zone. I mean, teams struggle all the time. They can move a football 60 yards down the field just fine, but when they get in the red zone, they sputter out. It's a really good test for me of a team's ability to actually be clinical and finish out a game. I think
I
that
agree
college
with that.
football overtime. I think that college football overtime rules belong in the NFL. I think the fans probably want that.
Hmm.
I would say most fans who watch college football or even high school football, I think they operate under the same rules or similar rules for
Yeah, they
overtime.
do. It's
Yeah,
pretty much the same, I think.
yeah, I think the NFL would really benefit from that. I don't think that I think that the overtime rules in the NFL are right now are better than they have been in the past 20 years, but I
Mhm.
definitely think that they would be far better if they just adopted the college overtime rules. It would be
What do you guys think about? They have not passed this rule, but it's been kicked around. I've heard it before, um, about the whole onside kick thing, because there's such a low recovery rate if a team's behind, that
they should make it easier.
instead of
Yeah.
doing the onside kick and having guys charge at each other and slam at each other, um, they talked about giving the team that's behind the option of taking the ball on, I don't know, their 30 or 40-yard line, something like that, and instead of kicking it off, giving them the ball and it's 4th and 15,
Mhm.
and on offense. It just eliminating the whole we're going to kick this ball 10 yards down the field where they almost never recover.
Mhm.
Uh, and if you have a high powered offense and you're on a
Mm.
roll, I mean 4th and 15 is hard to convert, but at least you go, well, let's give it a shot. I mean, do you guys like that better than the onside kick rule?
I I here's what I would do for my perfect system. I would revert the onside kick rule because I still like onside kicks, but they're the best when you don't see them coming.
Yeah.
So I would have the because now onside kicks can only be done by the losing team and you have to announce it,
Yeah,
Yeah,
to the
which I
referee.
think is so stupid.
that's dumb.
I
Yeah.
already am not really a big fan of having to announce like eligibility if you're bringing in an extra lineman or whatever. I like being able to kind of be sneaky and be tricky with things and catch your opponent off guard. I think having to announce that you're doing something is so soft. Um, so I would revert the onside kick rules back to what they were and then leave them as is. And then I would implement what you're talking about with the 4th and 15 only for the losing team.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that obviously you would have to announce because then, the defense would come out in a kick return formation and that would just be a mess.
Yeah. I think
But
for
if you
me,
fail it, it's a turnover on downs
right.
hmm,
right there.
yeah. I think for me, like another exciting thing that they could do, like it's on par with the 4th and 15, but like I think it's electric when a team recovers an onside kick. It's not very easy now, so I don't even know if you keep in the game or like my proposal would be like have the kicker take a like a 60-yard or like a 65-yard kick. I mean the kickers are ridiculous nowadays, right? A 60-yard kick is still pretty difficult, like especially when
Mhm.
the pressure's mounted on them. If they can do that, I feel like they deserve to get the ball back. And you're also keeping the onus on like the special teams to perform this play, right? But like if I feel for me, I feels like offense and defense should be pretty one side or the other, but the special teams are the ones doing the weird plays, like the kickoffs, the onside kicks, the punts, the field goals. But I think that something difficult like a 4th and 15 or a super long field goal would be welcome for me because like fans like watching from a neutral perspective. I always hated when the Vikings would somehow find a way to bundle a game up and lose or whatever. But like from a neutral's perspective, we always want to watch the team who's down 20 points in the at the top of the fourth or and midway through the third or bottom of the third, like claw their way back into a game and get the ball back on an onside kick and score 2 possessions in a row and make a good defensive stop like that. You want to watch the comeback, so it makes the game
Oh, yeah.
the game more entertaining. So I hope that in the future that they do make it easier for teams to kind of find their way back into games.
So I've got a proposal.
As
Um,
do I, actually.
yeah,
I'll let you go first.
about how they could fix the onside kick.
Okay.
And it just actually popped into my head 10 seconds ago.
So did mine.
Um, I've coached a lot of youth football, and sometimes just to keep the kids interested and all that, we kind of do a little bit of playground type games and stuff. And one of those is jackpot. Um, if you're
Okay.
familiar with jackpot,
Of course.
you guys are laughing because you grew up on it. But jackpots, you get a whole bunch of people lined up, and the coach usually is the one that throws the ball way up high, and everybody's bundled up together, and it's just this. Everybody jumps for the ball. Usually, the tallest kid will get it, but not always. What if for an onside kick, you had the punter come out and kick the ball high up in the air because the field goal kickers are always trying to get that extra hop, but the ball's moving fast in a horizontal way. What if you just brought the punter out and you taught the punter to kick the ball 10 yards down the field or 15 yards or whatever, but he kicked it high, giving everybody time to get underneath it, and then it's just a game of jackpot.
That's actually a great idea. I think part of
Mhm.
the reason why it's a great idea is because the only way you can actually recover an onside kick is if the kicker can actually find a way to make the ball bounce in such a way that the kicking team can actually retrieve the ball. If you level the
Yeah.
playing field by launching the ball in the air, which effectively does that, because I think I think the one thing about onside kick that makes it damn near impossible is that a football is super weird. Like when you kick it, you have to kick it a certain way so that it will hit the ground at the right angle and then bounce so that the receiving team can't get it. And if you don't do that, then they're just going to get it, right? So by kind of eliminating all those variables and just by punting the ball up in the air, I think that's pretty, as far as a rule change goes, it's probably one of the ways that you could definitely level out the playing field.
If they ever implement it, you heard it here first. And
I'll
and they,
remember
they
that.
should give me credit, and the NFL should send me a big check for
Yeah, I was
bringing it
about
up.
to say.
Yeah.
You want the money.
NFL rules committee, we offer our services to you for just the low price of $10 million per season.
Per person. Yeah.
Per
Yeah.
person. That's
You
right.
could probably cough it up too. That's a crazy part.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well,
Um,
anyway, I think we've kind of exhausted the rules
well,
part.
I had a
Unless
proposal
you had
really
another
quick.
thought. Okay.
Um, so mine maybe even sillier, but Ty, I liked your field goal idea. You know, instead of an onside kick, do a 65-yard field goal attempt. What if only for the losing team they could? Because you know how like obviously kickoffs are kicked a little differently than field goals are, which is why you have kickers making like these like 75-yard field goals on the kickoffs if they go through the uprights. But they're traditionally not worth any points. Well, what if you get a point on the kickoff if it goes through the uprights for every player you take off the field? Up to
Oh, so
four.
you do a kickoff. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're way behind, you have 10 guys sitting on the sideline, just the
Mm-hmm.
kicker, and he's got the ball on the tee.
With the like drawback of if he doesn't make it, if he like kicks it
It's
short
going to
and the
be a
guy
touchdown.
starts returning it, yeah, it's even harder to tackle him. So it's a risk reward.
That would be
That
crazy. That'd
Yeah, I mean, wow. That would
be
open up
electric
a
though.
whole debate about,
Mhm.
coach, how come you left 3 players on the field instead of 6? And
Mhm.
That's
wow.
it's interesting that you bring that up because like hockey has a kind of adjacent rule. Like so at the end of the game, if a team is down, they can actually pull their goalie and put on an extra outfield player.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen a similar rule like that, but it I don't know when in hockey they implemented that rule, but like adding or subtracting players to your thing to add a benefit definitely changes the way coaches approach those
Mhm.
situations. I think that would be a really drastic change for losing teams, right? Because
Oh
like
yeah.
they would, I don't think teams would do that to get back in the game. There might be some teams that are like, yeah, we're gonna just fucking do it.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, like after most kickoffs. So,
Mhm.
Wow.
yeah,
No, that's pretty intriguing. Um, so once again, NFL Rules Committee, if you want to adopt it, send the checks to Inside the Helmet, and
Mhm.
give us proper credit and our place in the Hall of Fame for dreaming up these things. Um, obviously. So, um, anyway, yeah. Usually our midsection, Michael's our
Don't
F1
apologize.
expert. He follows it. I don't. I don't know if Ty does or not. I've never really asked him, but
nope.
um, so
Well,
yeah, Michael, take it away. Tell us what's going on in F1 a little bit before we hit Ty's favorite topic.
sure. So yeah, after a long 5 week break, due to two canceled races during the month of April, we are back racing in Miami, a race that very controversial since it was added back in 2022, thanks to just all the publicity, all the PR, all the I guess hype around it for a track layout that is not very well received. And also, since it's a race in America, there's a bunch of celebrities that will get invited out to the race and get the camera on them, and they aren't exactly people that follow Formula One. They're just there because they're a big name that Formula One can promote to try and draw in new fans. Like, hey, look, Ariana Grande's at the race, and she doesn't know what the heck a F1 car is. So it among actual F1 fans, it's kind of seen as not a great time. The track isn't very good. The races have been pretty exciting still, um, but then all the attention from the celebrities is not very good either for true Formula One fans who can recognize when people are just exploiting the big name event.
Photo ops, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, the race itself was actually our second sprint race weekend of the season. So for those of you who don't know, a regular race weekend will have 3 practice sessions where drivers and teams get to get out on the track, feel how their car is around the track, and test out different strategies, see how well the tires are, stuff like that before getting into qualifying and the race. But for a sprint race, they trim it down to 1 practice session and then they replace the other 2 with a whole separate qualifying and race. But the race is shorter and it awards a fraction of the points of a regular race. So Just something to spice up about a quarter of the races each year. Anyway, so in the sprint race, we saw McLaren, who have been kind of coming back after the maybe lackluster start to the year when Mercedes was absolutely dominant. McLaren, who are the two-time reigning constructors champions, finally have seemed to get a hold of their car development and have shot themselves right back up near the front of the pack. And Lando Norris led his teammate Oscar Piastri home to finish first and second in the sprint race. Then in the main race, a lot of chaos. Max Verstappen, my favorite driver, spun on lap one. Didn't put it in the wall or anything, but dropped him down the order and he had to fight back. He ended up coming home to finish fifth. Behind Mercedes' George Russell, Kimi Antonelli, the 19-year-old second-year driver for Mercedes, continues to embarrass George Russell, who went into the season as the championship favorite. But Antonelli has now kind of swooped that championship dream away from Russell and is very quickly running away with it, which is pretty funny to see, actually. And then we had Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri rounding out the podium. Ferrari's Charles Leclerc had the big dramatic finish, and not in a very good way, because while he was trying to fend off Oscar Piastri and try and hold on to his third place on the final laps of the race, he spun a little bit and clipped the wall, which then gave his car some damage, and he ended up having to limp home and eventually was passed by Russell and Verstappen. And then, after the race, Charles Leclerc was handed a 20-second penalty for things I do not agree with. Essentially, they deemed that his car was not safe enough to drive, and he kept cutting the corners, which, if you look at the replay, he was turning the wheel all the way to the right, and the car essentially went straight on. So, I don't agree with the severity of the penalty. It dropped him down from 6th to 8th, I want to say. So, pretty chaotic weekend, all in all, and we have another 3 weeks until Canada. So,
Okay. Oh, on the car commentary, let me just throw this in for our viewers and listeners. If you ever have the opportunity to drive a Corvette C8, be sure to put it in sport mode, which is something that you kind of discover as you go along, because there's a big difference between touring mode and sport mode, and the sound
okay.
that it makes and the control and the acceleration. Just my 2 cents there, as long as we're talking about cars. But
Do you care to explain why you bring this up and how you may have
nah,
attained this
nah.
information? All right.
Nah, just keep that to myself. But
All right.
anyway, just some information I came across this week. Um, so anyway, yeah. So Ty is our special guest here tonight. Hopefully not the last time he joins us, but there's some big stuff coming up. I believe it's next month. I think it's in June. With the World Cup, and Ty kind of follows that the way you follow F1, and knows a lot about it. And first thing, Ty, I'm going to ask you, for those of us who, I'm aware of the World Cup, but I don't know that much about the teams
Yeah.
and all that. Tell us who are the favorites? Who are the teams to watch out for in the World Cup?
Yeah, so generally speaking, the World Cup is one of the most watched sporting events in the world. Every time that it comes on every 4 years. And it's interesting because, like, with lots of sports, I mean, we say like NFL obviously is a big league in the United States. There's other smaller leagues around, but obviously every NFL player is American, and if they had like a global like a global football tournament, America would probably blow people out of the water. We see that happen with basketball too, like in the Olympics, or I think they have a World Cup for basketball as well. Like America typically competes very well, and there's other nations like Spain, stuff like that. But the World Cup,
Mhm.
It's for soccer is really interesting because there's lots of nations that can kind of compete really well. Soccer is a very global game. Different countries play the sport differently, which makes it super fun to watch. So, in terms of teams that are favorites, France is always up there, and there's some pretty interesting reasons why these countries are all favorites. But I would say France, Argentina, Brazil, England are always those four are always super safe bets, and I can kind of go why, to say why they are. So for France, it's interesting because it's a nation that is very they have lots of presence of like academies, so it's very common for kids who are very good and maybe elementary school age level to be recruited into these academies in various cities in France, and then basically they're from there on they're professional soccer players almost. Like you're
Huh.
training every day. You treat your life like it's you wake up, you go play soccer, and then you go to a couple classes a day, and then you play soccer again, and you keep going. So there's lots of academy systems in France. It's pretty similar in England. What France and England both have in common is that they have a really rich um like I feel like they have a really rich immigration culture. There's lots of like immigrants from Africa that go to France, immigrants from the Middle East they go to France, immigrants from other countries in Europe that go to France, and the same to England, honestly. And what that does is you're bringing a lot of different soccer styles to a country, and they all compete against each other, and they really mix well. So a lot of France's players are like second or like like first generation French citizens or second generation French citizens. So it's a really interesting melting pot of a lot of cool talent, very athletic players, and very very competitive, rich history for soccer. For Argentina, it's really funny. South America typically has a culture of playing the beautiful game. But there's a couple countries in South America that play I would call it the aggressive warrior game, and Argentina is definitely one of them. They are very aggressive. Some say dirty, really toxic, competitively. Um, sort of. They don't break the rules, but their tactic is to get under the other team's skin, but also be extremely deadly while playing. And they also happen to have the best player, arguably, to ever play the game, Lionel Messi. He's Argentinian, and anytime he's on the soccer field, he can kind of help a team win. Brazil, that's my favorite team. Keith's wife and my mom are she's Brazilian, so I was raised on watching the Brazilian team play, and they play the beautiful game. They play the game like they're on the beach, with their friends, kicking the ball around, doing skills. A lot of them grew up playing, and that was one of the things that they knew could help, drag them out of poverty, or that was how they made good friends. There's also a good academy system in Brazil too. So just a really rich culture of it's baked into the culture. I'm sure you've heard um, our mom talk about it. It's just soccer is very central to the life in Brazil. So they live and breathe it, and they're always going to be up there as long as they're in the tournament. And then I think the other one I said was England. Yeah, just always super competitive. I would watch out for England because I think they've only won one World Cup in their history, and it was in like the 1970s. And I would say that they actually have like if you take the best players in the world right now and like summed up their ability, I think England would probably have the highest amount, but
Hmm.
they have not within the past 20 years pieced it together. Very like I don't know if this. I'm trying to think of an NFL team that's similar. Just they've always been at the top, but never have won. It's kind of like the Bills for
Buffalo.
yeah.
Yes, Buffalo.
It's like the Bills. Yeah, they're like the Buffalo Bills of global soccer. And so I'm excited for the World Cup. I think a couple of the interesting things about it this year, it's in the United States, Mexico, and Canada. So obviously the game's going to be closer to us. I don't think I'm going to be able to go to a game because they're so expensive. But part of that reason is that it's such a big event. It drives so much revenue. The tickets are so expensive, and I think the people who are selling the tickets know that no matter how high they price them, people are going to pay to come. So that's part of it. They also expanded the format, so instead of 32 teams, which it usually has been, it's 48. Um, I'm not a huge fan of it because honestly, purely off of nostalgia, the first 3 or 4 World Cups I've watched, it's been a 32 team format, and it's like I don't know. It's probably the same with like the NFL when the NFL expanded teams. I mean, Keith, I don't know if they've expanded or added teams within. I don't know how long the Jaguars have been around, for instance, but like
Didn't the
I would
Texans
Yeah.
add in like 2002 or something?
Yeah.
yeah, Yeah, I mean, I was not born. I think when I was born, there was the teams there must have been 32 teams at that point, or shortly after, or definitely when I've been a fan, it's been the same teams. But when you expand the format a little bit, it kind of gets rid of the nostalgia. Like if they added some random team, like I don't know what kind of team they would add, but like a Canadian team, or they added two Canadian teams and two Mexican teams, and then they played some games in Canada and Mexico and all that stuff. I would feel like
Mm.
you're kind of changing you're changing what was good, right? So
Yeah.
I'm a little worried to see what happens with that, but
Hmm.
um, either way, World Cup is in America this year. It's exciting. Soccer's a great sport, and I think one of the things about it is that the World Cup is probably the one approachable thing for many non-soccer fans to get into soccer. So that's good that's in the States, because the United States have a really struggling team that could really use the support of the American fans. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Uh,
that's
I had a couple questions. So we were talking
yeah.
before the show about how there were we were talking about rule changes. Of course, we opened the show with talking about the various rule changes that the NFL has underwent, but we also mentioned that the World Cup has had some rule changes. Is that just the expansion of adding more teams, or were there more rule changes that
Yeah,
are
it's
happening?
interesting that you bring that up. So one of the new rule changes that's going to take in place is and soccer doesn't have this right. Many of the top leagues now have something called it's video assistant referee, but it's referred to as VAR or VAR.
Hmm.
Most major leagues have it at this point, but basically any critical play after it happens can the referee there's a fourth referee, or there's actually typically like a video assistant crew that's like somewhere in the stadium or in a completely different place. Sometimes it's like New York. I know that the NFL can send plays to like New York sometimes. Maybe I don't know if
Mhm.
that's right, but
Yeah, I think
um,
that's where the head office is.
yeah, so it's similar for soccer, but like any critical play. So say like there's a potential foul in the box. The if the people watching in the if the people watching in the referee booth or wherever they are think that the ref should look at it, they'll go into the ref's ear and be like, "Yeah, there might have been a foul. You should go look at it." Um, they've introduced it because they're trying to limit the amount of referee error. What ends up happening though is that it gets kind of fuzzy. Um, like they've had to introduce like kind of a new interpretation of what happens with VAR. So sometimes like a foul might happen, but it's not actually it's actually a foul. But the fact that they didn't call it a foul on the field, it doesn't mean it was strong enough to overturn it. So they're bringing in the video assistant referee, which makes the fans be like, yeah, then there should be no mistakes, and then they're still making mistakes. So actually, this will be the first World Cup where they have VAR, and it's actually changed the game a lot. A lot of
Okay.
diehard soccer fans don't like it. They
Yeah.
prefer one rule in soccer that they're fine with is video assistant refereeing for offsides, because offsides is pretty easy to judge. It's like if you're the last man, if you're beyond the last man and you receive the ball, you're offsides. So like they're fine with that. But there's other things that are more contextual, like a foul. It's kind of like if they decided to bring in like instant replay for holding calls. It's very contextual.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's very clearly a hold.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's like, okay, it might be a hold, but within the context of the play, it doesn't matter. So why would we overturn it? And why are we adding time to the game to look at a
Yeah.
holding call? So this
Yeah.
would be the first World Cup with that rule change. We'll see what happens. A lot of fans don't like it, and it can really change the game. So I don't know. I think soccer is kind of going the same thing the NFL's undergoing. They're changing some of the rules to tweak the game, and I'm not a huge fan of it, but I have faith that they'll correct in the right direction and make the game more entertaining and more uh natural, I would say.
Quick
Yeah.
quick question on you were talking about the offsides rule because
Mhm.
as somebody who doesn't follow soccer,
Is that a
um,
10-meter
I was
penalty?
well, no, I was thinking about what we used to call it when we played just pickup basketball. If somebody just kind of hung out at near the basket that they were supposed to shoot at, didn't
Sure.
get back on defense.
Yeah.
We had a term for it. It's called snowbirding,
Yeah.
which I don't even know why, but essentially you'd get criticized if you were snowbirding, not getting back on defense, and just taking the long pass and making the easy layup. Uh, so it sounds like offsides in soccer is kind of trying to eliminate snowbirding, but uh, I've always wondered, are you offsides at the moment that the ball is kicked to you, um, or if you were, not the closest guy or the last guy, and it was kicked, and then you ran ahead and received it, is that offsides?
So you had it you have it right. So like when you're if you're behind the last man before the kick and then they kick it, as soon as the player kicks it, then you're
Yeah.
free to go after it. It's not when you receive the ball on the other end, it's when
Okay.
the player
Okay.
kicks it. So it actually makes the rule more fair. I think offsides rule is probably the most well-defined and best rule to the game because it's not impossible to stay onside. Being offsides is like typically means you have bad awareness. It in a way it's meant to protect like snowbirding. I call it cherry picking. I don't even know if that's the right word, but like
That's what I call it too.
yeah, when you're playing pickup basketball and you don't want to like run back on defense, you just want to receive the ball higher up the court.
Hmm.
Like there even is an element of cherry picking that would be like not like going all the way back, like staying all the way at the front, but like even if you went to half court or like slightly beyond half court, that's still cherry picking. And soccer is the same concept, so it's really trying to protect like not only the really long distance that you can get ahead of someone, the last defender, is like the short distance too. It changes what kind of strikers or attackers that teams want to recruit. So they typically want to recruit like really fast strikers, so that when you're breaking, you can just rip a long ball, and the really fast player can beat the defender and get on it. And it also makes you want to get fast defenders so that you don't get caught, flat-footed, because
So
that's
here's a
the best way.
rule
Yeah.
change. I'm going to get paid by the NFL Rules Committee and the soccer people as well. You want to make the game more interesting, have more scoring. Allow keep the same rule about offsides. You have to be not the closest guy to the goalie. There has to
Yeah.
be a defender in between you and the goalie at the time that the ball is kicked, but allow that striker to grab the defender and pull him out, out of the way. Grab him physically by the arms and shove him to the side as you run by him, because I think
Yeah.
that would open up more scoring, which would make the game better.
I think they
Well,
should implement my kickoff rule. Take one player off, and your goal is worth more points.
that that honestly, like that one would be interesting. So, like, I don't think they would do it. One of the things that soccer is really good about is that the game has not changed much. Like, honestly, the rules of soccer have been the same since like the 70s or the 60s. Like apart from like minor adjustments to maybe the goal size or like the size of the box or the size of the field, right? Most of the time things have been the same. That rule would be really interesting, like in like a sandbox setting, like if they wanted to try it out, I think it would actually be really cool. The 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 against Keith's point, like you can actually be pretty aggressive in soccer. You don't think it because you watch it obviously and you see lots of players falling around, but like a lot of strikers who are really strong and know how to use their body well are really hard to play against. And actually, one of the best strikers in the world right now is that player exactly, and he's uniquely good at that because he's 6'5", surprisingly lanky, but also incredibly strong. So, and he's really fast. His name is Erling Haaland. He's a Norwegian guy. People liken him to a Viking because he literally looks like a Viking.
Sure.
And what he does really well is hanging on the last man and using his absolutely enormous frame and speed to just completely muscle off any defender. And he scores all the time. He's only a year older than me, and he's scored like maybe like something like 170 goals in the past 4 years across club and country.
Wow.
Has but yeah, so basically like you can get pretty nasty. You just have to have the right physique for it. I don't think lots of soccer players do. I think most soccer players are encouraged to be thin and be able to run a lot and be fast. So the strong players are not as popular now, but that is the capability to have is to be able to wrestle people off the ball, and there's a way you can do it legally. So, but the ten like taking players off and having it count more for goals, that would be really interesting. Like
I've got one more rule proposal to throw
Yeah.
out there, because if I don't say it and they ever implement it, I won't get proper credit. How about if you're down by 2 goals in the second half, you can introduce a second ball. So you have two balls being kicked around, at the same time, which puts a whole lot of different dynamic. You're trying to play defense and offense at the same time, and God help you if both balls wind up on your side. The other team has two balls coming up the field at you at the same time, right? I mean, it would seem like that would increase scoring.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's like soccer is such a well preserved game that I don't think they would make a rule change like that. But for instance, I've actually we in practice we've done that. So, um, like when I was in practice in high school or in middle school and elementary school, we would play. And there's actually I think there's actually like I don't know if y'all ever watch like ESPN 8 The Ocho, but there's some like funny sports they have on there, and one of the funny sports they have is like 3 goal, 3 team soccer.
Hmm.
They'll make a circular field and they'll put 3 goals and they'll have 3 teams.
Wow.
So and then in practice
How
we
has
also
Rocket
did
League never done that?
yeah, yeah. Rocket League's like one of my favorite games, by the way. It's so much fun.
Mm.
The the 2 ball thing I have done in like soccer practice before. It's totally different. Like, and the coaches make you do it because if you can focus on a game with 2 balls in play, and you can do the right things with 2 balls in play, then you can do the right things with one. So
Yeah.
it's a really good challenge. I don't know if they would do it, but I think it'd be like a fun like little like if they decided to make like an ESPN 8 The Ocho, I think it'd be fun to watch. But yeah, they definitely do like the 3 team soccer. That's really entertaining to watch. They also do like car soccer. Like some people do car soccer, and that's like based off of Rocket League. There's a lot of fun derivations of soccer because there's lots of little minor tweaks you can make to it that make it more entertaining. So
Mhm.
maybe they'll make a 2 ball soccer. Maybe it already exists. And we just don't know where it is. But
Maybe.
Maybe we should
Um,
start our own league, and
well, they supposedly, I just looked it up and the Google AI told me that this is a myth, but I still choose to believe it's true that in the sixth overtime, if you have a hockey game that goes to 6 overtimes, they add a second puck.
oh,
huh, huh.
I have a hockey reference I can ask that question to. I don't know
Okay.
nothing about hockey, but that sounds fun. And hockey has
I
a lot
mean,
of cool
either.
rules. Hockey
Yeah.
is
Mhm.
like hockey in terms of like the whole trash talk and like being able to just absolutely destroy someone like by just
Yeah,
body.
the fact that you can just fight
Yeah.
It's so
is
great.
crazy to me.
More sports need it, and actually the reason they say it, and I really like it, is because um like they say that the way the sport is designed, that if they didn't let the players fight, that it would like within the game, like small fights, that there would just be like massive brawls because it's
Hmm.
basically like a pressure cooker. Like
Hmm.
if they're running back and they're skating back and forth, they're running into each other, they're slapping with sticks and things like that. Like they have to have like minor fights, or else like some person's gonna boil over and like try to stick check someone in the face.
Hmm.
But
I like that philosophy.
no, and I talk with Keith about this all the time because I really like watching basketball. But like basketball used to be a game where it's like, oh, the players were nasty. Like Larry Bird would chirp absolutely crazy trash talk to anybody who's playing against,
Hmm.
like demoralizing trash talk. And now if you do the same thing, you get teed up. Like you can't dunk and then celebrate in someone's face. You
Yeah.
can't step over them like
Hmm.
Allen Iverson. Kobe Bryant's kind of trash talk and just absolutely destroying people wouldn't work. Like they
Jordan too. I
yeah,
mean, he
Michael
was
Jordan as
right.
well. Obviously, I need to mention him, but it's like the that adds so much for the fans, and it also makes it probably more fun for the players. Like, what I want to
Oh,
play
yeah.
in a game. I want to play in a game where I want to like where I'm talking trash, and that would be motivating to me. Like if
Yeah.
I don't know, but the hockey's got it right. I think other sports could probably do a little bit more of the whole like
Hmm.
encouraging like fighting in a way.
We could come
I
back on and do a whole show about how sports has become soft.
Yeah, I
I
was gonna
would
say
totally
just the
be
over
part of
like this isn't a word, but corporatization. Like they're
Yes.
Yeah.
becoming too corporate. They're becoming too media friendly. I want the unhinged, raw emotions. I want a running back who just lost the Super Bowl, dropping the most foul, like heart-filled, expression of their own physical pain and emotion after the game. Like I don't want these people having to like suppress themselves. We're being
Yeah.
robbed of these people's true personality and emotion.
Yeah. I want to see the offensive linemen like legitimately start to beat up like whichever linebacker or safety like
Do
tries
a
to sack
do
the
a
quarterback.
Lyle Alzado and rip off the offensive lineman's helmet and start beating him with it.
Like players like Ndamukong Suh, they did make the game more interesting.
Yeah,
Hmm.
they did. Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
Um,
but then because obviously then people that actually do that, they get labeled as dirty players, which I mean most of them actually are because they're just the type of people that don't care about the restrictions and whatnot. Um,
Yeah.
I think that type of play would be looked on a lot friendlier if the people that weren't so demonstrative about it would be allowed to let loose somewhat.
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, we could do a subsequent show about is
Hmm.
showboating good or bad. Nowadays, honestly, what I see, especially basketball, is really, but football as well, is a player makes a play and they clench their fists at their side and they scream at the sky. It's
Hmm.
the same expression, you know,
Yeah.
and it's just it's weak to me.
Hmm.
It's like I know the camera's on me, and this is what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna, "Ah!" It's just like, dude, that's not real. Um,
I really like. Obviously, this is going to be pretty obvious coming from me, but Formula One drivers have really good celebrations.
how
Like
so?
if
Did
it
you get the
just it
champagne?
will like whoever wins or whoever qualifies on pole, they get out of the car and the camera's on them and they do a celebration. They either flex or they do a Fernando Alonso where they like do one of these or
Uh,
something like.
They have some sort of like set of women with them, or they have champagne bottles too, or whatever. It's like, well, they
I
did. They
yeah,
think
did.
they kind of got rid of the women, to make it more politically correct. But
Oh, I
yeah,
see.
they still have the champagne.
Yeah.
okay,
How much that would enrage like if they did that crap in the NBA. Maybe we could get teed.
yeah,
You get teed up
Yeah.
after the game, get fined. But
dude.
Hmm.
yeah,
Well, guys, our we kind of did a double show today, but we're
Hmm.
three voices. You gotta make time for everybody to talk and everything.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, well worth it to go a little bit of extra time and hit these different topics. And Ty, I hope you come back sometime
yeah, it
soon,
was
Hmm.
fun, guys.
often, soon and often.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, yeah, I guess that ra- just about wraps it up. Excuse me. Um, so want to thank you all for tuning in. If you stayed around this long, be sure to come back next week. We'll have some more exciting stuff to talk about. Ty, thanks for joining the show. Hope to have you back sometime.
Yep, sounds good.
And
It's been fun.
oh
God
yeah.
bless.
Hmm.
Yep. See y'all.
See you guys next week.
Okay.